Welcome in Science Magazine program. First, listen to an interview with Dr. Sachin Bahmba, Space India, on space education for space research and development. Interviewer is Manoj Mainkar.
It's a pleasure to welcome Dr. Sachin Bahmba, entrepreneur, astronomer, and philanthropist who has pioneered the introduction of the concept of astronomy and space science education in the country's education system. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much, sir.
There are as many questions in my mind as possibly there are stars in the sky. In our conversation, I'd like to touch upon a lot of topics connected with space and astronomy. One, of course, because space tourism is something that's very exciting as a concept. And two, connecting children with, I don't know how much of space science is, so to say, a rocket science, how difficult it is. But I'd like to touch upon children as well as we proceed gradually.
So let's start with this. So basically, astronomy and space is application of all the science, mathematics, geography that you're learning at your primary level, at your middle level, at your secondary level. And to derive numbers out of nature and to learn science through the universe is the best way of learning science. That is what is now being advocated in new education policy, that people should not, or students should not be put into cramming of things. They should understand, apply, and that is what is the future of this country. In fact, you'll be amazed to know that we started astronomy and space education back in 2003, and we are pioneers of bringing it. Obviously, there is a lot of curriculum and research that has happened, and till now students have discovered 2,400 asteroids with me. This project is called All India Asteroid Search Campaign. Students have also been awarded by NASA. In fact, our Prime Minister also mentioned one of the girls whose discovery was named in just 2 days. So see, students are doing wonderful concept, and when you bring that application at school level and they understand how to make a rocket, whether they are making a small model rocket or whether they are making a water rocket, they are understanding the principles of push and pull.
Do you use a telescope?
So telescope is the first remote sensing device that humans used. 400 years back, we have started using telescope, and India at one point of time was the leader of astronomy and space research. Aryabhatta, and I can take names and people who have done so much research and given so much to the world. And to bring that Gurukulam system back, where students are going out and doing hands-on astronomy, is what we thrive for, and that is what we do. As far as putting in perspective of space tourism and space technology and fostering the space generation, one thing you have to understand that the student who is exactly 17, 18 and 20 years old right now, so 17 to 18 are the people who are going to actually lead the coming space revolution that is happening all across the world. We have seen wonderful startups in India. So it is the time when students should be involved into this education, as well as the aspect of bringing technology for space tourism.
Sachin, may I interrupt you here? You just mentioned 17, 18. This question has been there in my mind for a long time. Have you even seen people below the age of 17 evincing interest in a complex subject like space and astronomy?
The first poem we all learned was Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So basically, the education itself says that for the early years, the student should be given a little more understanding of what he is seeing around, and stars, universe, atmosphere, and all of this is around us. I'll give you a simple example. Everybody learns the definition of longitude and latitude. 6th class student actually finds the circumference of the earth using a simple pencil. So when a student understands that I can actually, by using the simple trigonometry, by using the astronomical principles, I can do such big experiments in collaboration with other students, is a huge thing that they understand. Moreover, as you mentioned telescope, the 2nd class student already has a chapter in its book which talks about planets. So it is one thing that I go on talking about planet, and it's another thing that I show you the planet through a telescope. So when you are seeing it in the sky, it's a star, but when you see it through the telescope, it suddenly turns into a beautiful ball and becomes a Saturn or a Jupiter with so many moons going around. And that kind of passion that hits child at class 2nd at that level is never taken away. He becomes a scientist on its own. So that's the beauty of hands-on science. And exactly, students love to understand the things around them, and they love to participate in astronomy and space applications that we create for them, workshops that we create for them. For example, Chandrayaan. Every kid at class 6 is interested to make his own rover, and I have seen students doing it so enthusiastically that, it actually beats even the scientists, the kind of passion they have while they are creating these things. So students love astronomy and space at all ages.
Sachin, it would be incomplete if we don't touch upon, your own interest and your own background in the subject. I want to know, at what age did a meteor struck you and you started?
It actually struck me very early. So, all of us have read about microscope and telescope in class 6th. So when the ray diagram was being taught, my teacher was very enthusiastic. She brought the microscope and we could see through the microscope. So it was a very normal question for me to ask him, ma'am, when can we see through the telescope? And that is when, it hit me that telescope is missing from Indian education system, just for the reason that there are no field astronomy educators. So it's a big gap that was there. And, it became my passion. I was the guy who was always brought forward to make people see moon, Jupiter, planets, and, do simple experiments. I would like to mention my mentor, Dr. Nirupama Raghavan, who actually took me on this journey. She was the director of Nehru Planetarium, a wonderful educationist, a wonderful scientist. Most people do not know this, that in 2004 Venus transit, she was actually working with us in calculating the difference between distance of Earth and Sun using the Venus transit. It's a huge experiment and 25,000 students were participating in it. She was always out and got skin cancer and later on, succumbed to the disease. People like this have motivated me and they have shown me this path. And I think, I have dedicated my life in creating curriculums, creating workshops. In fact, when we started this journey, till today, we are the leaders of astronomy and space education worldwide. We almost make everything from a gnomon, which is the center of sundial, an observatory in schools. So we have brought research. So we do everything in astronomy. We created educational company just to support the education materials, model, exhibits, books. So, we have to write all of this. And, now it's a wonderful journey that is full of pride. And also, astronomy cannot be done without having the skill, which is education, and the equipment, as well as location. Location is very important. So we started a concept called astrotourism in 2006, and I'm pioneer of astrotourism. Took students to study solar eclipses with me in 2009.
To what height to get a clear sky?
No. They travel to places where eclipse can be seen. When the sun is eclipsed by moon, there is a small portion of the earth which is under the shadow. So you have to actually travel to that location to watch the eclipse. So I have taken students to Turkey, to Russia, to study eclipses, to US, to China, so they have gone to those places. Also, we did the first ever flight in India which studied the eclipse. The famous observation at Taregana was organized by me, and so on and so forth. And astrotourism today is a wonderful concept in which, we are creating jobs for thousands and thousands of young people who can be associated with this field.
Sachin, I've noticed very often in Honorable Prime Minister's Mann Ki Baat, endeavors of, young people and young entrepreneurs, they get a mention. And that's how we as commoners came to know of terms like Kalam Sat and Balloon Sat and NSLV and Azadi Sat. And can you throw some light on what kind of activities these are?
See, I am amazed by the depth of the Prime Minister's knowledge about this field. He has always seen space as the possible field where, India could lead, and it is happening now. We are becoming the third largest economy of the world, and probably the most looked for space agency is ISRO now for most of the nations to send their satellites. Although when that all is happening, it can only be sustained if students at early age, kids at early age are involved into this. That is the vision of Prime Minister. He talks about it, and Kalamsat is one of the satellites that a student with me has developed and sent to space. So these kind of things are happening. Students are now designing new rockets. There are hundreds of startups happening, and Prime Minister talks about he's concerned about bringing jobs and employment to people using these concepts, and that is exactly what target of my and my organization's life is. So we resonate with him, and he's a kind of a person we look forward to to give such statements, because people really get interested into these things. For example, we have created astroports, which are astronomy and space experience centers all over India, and astroports are actually centers which bring socio-economic development to wherever we start. Invariably, if I need to start a stargazing center, I'll have to go to a place which is not lit by lights, so less urbanization, little bit more of remote areas, and the people get a lot of benefit by direct and indirect socio-economic changes that we bring. They put up small shops, they start sending their handicrafts, and local peoples get trained by us and they use the telescope. So it's a wonderful concept that PM is talking about. He recently said a very interesting thing which I have been advocating for long. He wanted people to enjoy moon parties. It's a wonderful concept. When you can have every kind, why not enjoy a moon party when there is a full moon out? Take out your telescope, do activities related to moon, and all of this is happening at our locations where we are conducting these activities.
But Sachin, tell me, if you talk of Delhi, how far from Delhi would one have to travel? Have a look at a clear sky.
So Delhi has a lot of bulbs, so a lot of light is thrown towards the sky, and we have a layer of atmosphere which starts from 1.5 kilometers and goes up to densely up to around generally up to 3 kilometers. plus the pollution. So extra layer is also created. So this light goes and gets bounced back towards us. So, Delhi is lit like a tube light, where there is gas and all of the gas is being lit by the light which is internally. So it does not let you see pass through that layer. So you'll have to travel. The nearest location around Delhi would be, Siriska Alwar, because, the wildlife sanctuary is never going to have light in it, by the statue. And Sariska is the nearest. So that is the reason the nearest astroport is in Alwar, and that is what is happening. And, if you take a circle around, I would say Bijnor would be the area where you will start seeing the skies. And how do we know it? When you look at the sky in Delhi, you will only see very bright stars, which are 10 to 12 stars. But as you start traveling and going to those locations, your eye can see up to 6,000 stars in a night, and that is where you should go. So basic indicator would be if you are able to see all the stars of Orion, which is Kalpurush, or Saptarishi, which is Ursa Major, then probably you are in a region. And if you are able to see, pole star, Dhruv Tara is generally said बहुत bright, but it is not that bright. So if you are able to see pole star, then you are a good region to do astronomy. That's what is
Sachin, a connected question, let me ask you. The theme of World Space Week 2024 has been space and climate change. Now, one fails to understand space is all about when you kind of leave the atmosphere forever and then space starts. How do you connect space and climate change? Because climate change happens in the atmosphere.
So climates, rather two important layers, ionosphere and stratosphere, are directly related to the weather of the sun. Fine. So sun actually is a kind of interesting phenomena of physics that is happening. Matter is being crushed. It is exactly, I feel like, the concept of Shiva is there in sun, So matter is being destroyed, matter is being created. In fact, all the iron in your blood is coming from sun. So sun is very important factor for space weather. Fine. And the heat of the sun, because of the carbon that we are emitting, is now melting. So generally the average temperature of the earth is rising. When that temperature is rising, it is actually melting the polar ice caps. And those polar ice caps are being now, fresh water is being mixed into the sea water, and that is bringing these climatic changes. So, everything on earth is related to space, which is sun. So basically climate is also related that way, although our activity adds or accelerates the way, the earth is heating up, and that is the reason it is an important concept. Moreover, space weather directly relates to the weather on earth, and ionosphere, stratosphere, these are important for our satellites to function. So it's a very important concept that space or weather are connected.
Now we are coming to the conclusion of our little conversation. We briefly touched upon aspects of astrotourism. I would like you to conclude with how we are placed in terms of space tourism.
So let me first explain. Astrotourism is the tourism when you are on the earth, experiencing the space. So you are not traveling to space, but experiencing the space for astrotourism. So we are pioneers of astrotourism worldwide. But space tourism, US is 70 years ahead of us. India is just now sending our first Gaganyaan. So, the humans will be traveling, Indians will be traveling to space. But I would like to make an interesting announcement today that we are giving opportunity for Indians to travel to space. So this project is starting very soon. So Blue Origin, what it does, it takes people to 100 kilometers in a kind of module and brings them back. So it's edge of the space and bringing back.
And
so
do they have to be specialists like astronauts?
No. Okay. They don't have to be. So 6 people from 150 countries would be selected. Although India will always have one seat reserved. So it's a wonderful opportunity for Indians to travel to space. On one hand, when ISRO is doing this, we have opened up an opportunity for people to go to space through us. Also, students can send 5 experiments to space. So, this opportunity is not only making people travel to space, but also giving opportunity to students to send their experiments to do in zero gravity. And that's a wonderful initiative that has started. And I think India's space tourism time is coming. And as soon as ISRO starts with the kind of achievements that ISRO is doing, as soon as ISRO sends humans to space and brings them back safely, I think it will be an advent of that era, and you will see a huge boom in space tourism happening in India. And probably, I hope I would be one of the people riding the wave.
All the best, Dr. Sachin Bahmba. For me, it was a rather illuminating experience to be in conversation with you. I'm very sure all our young listeners, for them, it must have been nothing less than a meteor shower. Thank you very much for coming to the studios of Akashvani.
Thank you so much.
With Science News, now this is Samidha Rath. A team of scientists from the Institute of Advanced Study in Science and Technology and NIT Nagaland has developed new magnetic nanoparticles that could revolutionize cancer treatment. These nanocrystalline cobalt chromite magnetic nanoparticles designed for magnetic hypothermia generate heat when exposed to an alternating magnetic field, increasing the temperature of cancer cells to 46 degrees Celsius. This heat causes necrosis in tumor cells with fewer side effects compared to traditional cancer treatments like chemotherapy and radiation. The research, led by Professor Devasish Chaudhary, offers a promising alternative for targeted cancer therapy and was published in Nanoscale Advances. Desertification and Drought Day 2025, scheduled for June 17, will focus on restoring 1.5 billion hectares of degraded land globally and advancing a $1 trillion land restoration economy. The theme, Restore the Land, Unlock the Opportunities, highlights the benefits of land restoration. UNCCD Executive Secretary emphasized that land degradation disrupts economies, food production, and stability, urging a push for restoration. Despite strong economic returns from restoration, funding remains insufficient, with a daily need of $1 billion for land and drought resilience. That raises awareness on combating desertification with previous events held globally. Researchers have discovered a potential treatment for patients with autism or intellectual disability, which could make patients less dependent on others and enable them to lead a better life. A team led by Tapas Kumar Kundu and James Clement from the Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research found that the mutated SYNGAP gene in mice is similar to the mutated SYNGAP gene found in autism patients. The researchers found that in mice with the mutated SYNGAP gene, there is a reduction in the histone acetylation process in the brain. To correct this process, the researchers combined an activator of the TTK21 enzyme with glucose-derived nanospheres. This restored acetylation in the brain, resulting in the improved neuronal function, memory, and learning ability. A major update has come regarding the asteroid 2024 YR4. The James Webb Space Telescope has observed the asteroid, which will pass near Earth in 2032. According to its calculations, Earth is safe, but the Moon could be at risk. Previously, there was a 1.7% chance of it colliding with the Moon on December 2022-2032, but this has now increased to 3.8%. According to NASA, even if the asteroid does collide with the Moon, it will not cause any changes in the Moon's orbit, although its effects will be visible on Earth as well. NASA has also determined its size. According to infrared data from the James Webb Space Telescope, the asteroid size is between 174 to 220 feet, which is roughly equivalent to a 10-story building. The famous American billionaire Jeff Bezos' company, Blue Origin, is sending an all-women crew mission to space on April 14. The mission is named NS-31. The most special aspect of this mission is that all the crew members aboard the New Shepard spacecraft, which will be used for the mission, will be women. The impact of the tariffs imposed on imported goods by US President Donald Trump is now being felt in scientific laboratories as well. These tariffs are causing the prices of basic scientific equipment such as microscopes, glassware, and computer chips to rise. The increase in tariffs is particularly affecting products coming from countries like China, Germany, Japan, Switzerland, and others. US research institutions are already dealing with the cancellation of grants and reductions in the financial support for universities. Additionally, the prices of lab equipment could increase by as much as 20% because of these tariffs. New research has advanced brain reading implants using artificial intelligence algorithms. Through this technology, a paralyzed woman was able to convert her thoughts into speech. The brain reading implants transforms neural signals into voice. The woman participating in this study, Anne, lost the ability to speak due to a stroke in 2005. 18 years later, she had an implant device placed on her brain that records the activity of thousands of neurons. Researchers trained an AI algorithm to replicate Anne's voice to resemble that of her earlier years. As a result, this technology enables Anne to speak at a rate of 47 to 90 words per minute. Previously, such technology could only produce speech after a full sentence was completed, but now it can recognize words within 3 seconds and speak them out loud. Seabirds and other marine creatures are being severely affected by plastic pollution. A recent study found signs of dementia in the brains of sable shearwater chicks due to plastic ingestion, along along with disturbances in liver and kidney function and disorders in the stomach lining. This study was conducted by neuroscientist Mingxia Zhang and her team from Beijing Normal University and was published in Science Advances. Researchers discovered that birds that consumed more plastic had higher levels of certain specific proteins in their blood, indicating cell breakdown. These birds also had lower levels of albumin, which signals liver and kidney damage. Additionally, the level of the brain-related protein BDNF was reduced, which is crucial for the development and proper functioning of nerve cells. A recent study has proven that the difference in activity between the thalamus and the cortex determines whether we consciously experience a stimulus or not. The study revealed that when people are aware of an icon, there is a stronger and earlier activity in the thalamus, while the cortex shows activity later. This finding suggests that the thalamus acts as a filter, controlling which thoughts reach our awareness. The research also clarified that the thalamus not only filters sensory information in consciousness but also coordinates with other parts of the brain to determine our level of awareness. This study is the first time that the activity of both the thalamus and the cortex has been recorded together, providing scientists with new insights into the study of consciousness. This research, published in Science magazine, was conducted by neuroscientist Mingxia Zhang and his colleagues from Beijing Normal University. A species of snake called the Popp's pit viper is found in the northern and northeastern parts of India. A new study has uncovered the mysteries of the venom of the Popp's pit viper. While much research has been conducted on the venom of 4 venomous snakes found in India, the Russell's viper, saw-scaled viper, spectacled cobra, and common krait, there had been no prior research on the composition of the Popp's pit viper's venom. The research identified 106 proteins in the venom of the Popp's pit viper, which were classified into 12 venomous families. About 60% of the venom is composed of enzymes that break down proteins, damage tissues, affect blood clotting, and cause localized bleeding.
With this, today's episode of Science Magazine ends. Narrated by Priyanka Kumari and presented by Dilip Jha. This broadcast came to you from the Indraprasth channel of Akashvani, Delhi.